If you know somebody who could use some help marketing their business, if you would take the couple seconds to share this podcast with them, I would greatly appreciate it. Word of mouth is by far one of the best ways to organically market, so that would be greatly appreciated. Thanks. What's up, and welcome back to the Matt Pete Marketing Podcast. And today, I'm super excited about my guest. So my next guest went from being broke and $70,000 in debt to being debt-free, having a year of living expenses in the bank, and doing so well in real estate that after his wife's maternity leave ended in June, when their second baby was born, she was able to give a notice to her job and be a stay-at-home mom. In real estate, they say you average making about $20,000 a year for your first couple of years. He knew he'd never survive on $20,000 a year, so he worked his butt off. And when he hit his second year mark, August 28th, back in 2019, he had built a six-figure business. In addition to his work as a realtor, he also hosts the Real Estate Survival Guide podcast. Side note, I listen to the podcast and I'm not a realtor. It's just a good business podcast in general. So the podcast is to help realtors survive the real estate business. A couple months ago, just 6 months in, he was in the top 10% of podcasts worldwide, which is huge. So when he's not selling real estate or working on the podcast, John does one-on-one coaching with realtors. And he also recently began doing social media coaching for other businesses as well. So John has found his superpower in coaching others to use social media to grow their businesses, as he estimates almost half of his real estate business has come to him by using social media organically, free, to grow his business. Welcome to the podcast, John Shookman.
Matt, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. Good to see you, bro. And I'm excited to spend some time with you today.
Yeah, me too. And for everybody out there who doesn't know us personally, I met you, John, back in Pittsburgh this past April at the Total Life Freedom Mastermind event, the retreat. And that was my first retreat. I was there to shoot video, and I have this one clip of you're like always smiling. So if anybody watches those retreat videos,
or laughing,
it's just, it's just filled with John. Like the video is like, I 40% John, because he's always like a great target for video. So if you ever see him at a conference and you're videoing or photographing it, just look for him. He's going to give you great content.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, man.
So met you back then. And then this past conference in North Dakota, you actually led with Wendy Norman a breakout session talking about social media and using social media. And y'all went like really in depth with the group. And it was great to be able to sit in and just listen to that, y'all's experience using social media and how powerful that is.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I mean, it's really cool. I think the coolest part, just before I got on with you today, I recorded a podcast about finding your zone of genius, right? And so your zone of genius talks a lot about like, what are you passionate? I mean, I'll give the 10-second version, but the zone of genius is like, what are you passionate about? What are you good at? And then how do you get people to like pay you money to do that? Now, as I build out the social media thing, I think my biggest thing is like, I'm not really concerned about the income from coaching. Like it's nice, but I think my biggest thing is like realizing, oh my goodness, like I think that retreat was a game changer for me. Cause I'm like, wait, people are actually scared of social media. Like they don't even know how to talk about their business on social media. And it's something I think as a realtor, I don't know if it gives me a leg up, but it gives me like, as a realtor, I almost have to talk about my business, right? Because if I'm not promoting my real estate business, someone's going to. There's 1,000 realtors just in my county. So imagine how many in Pennsylvania, nationwide. And so many realtors and even other businesses, which is how this other arm was built. But so many people are like, they're not using social media to promote their business. And so it's been awesome to kind of realize, oh, wow, I'm good at this. Now, how do I use this and how can I coach and help others? And people at that retreat have come to me and said, can you coach me one-on-one with social media? And so it's really cool, to realize, hey, like, and I have to kind of simplify it sometimes, which is okay. Like some people are like, how many times a day do I post? How many this? And I'm like, relax. Like, this is why you're overwhelmed by social media. Like, let's start with like once a month. Like if you talk about your business once a month on Facebook, that would be a win as far as I'm concerned. And then as you get more comfortable, how do we make that twice a month, and how do we make that once a week? Those kinds of things. I think social media, there's always something new coming out. TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, like there's something new. It feels like every week or every month. And it's like, well, I can't keep up. And so I think I learned, over these last few months and in my business and leading, the social media initiative for our real estate team is let's focus on either what we're already using or one that we're comfortable with and going from there. So thank you. I mean, you can tell already, you start talking about social media and I get like excited, but it's been cool to learn and also help people along the journey.
Yeah, and normally I go in and my first question is, what is your marketing passion? I think it's pretty obvious. We don't need, social media and organic social media at that. And one thing you talked about at the retreat, you know, a lot, because I know you personally, I know a lot about, what you're doing, not everything, but
Yep.
um, how in your real estate business, whenever you get somebody that comes to you to sell their house, you already have like a list of like so many social media posts that you can create from that
Yep.
one listing. So
Yep.
you've systematized like this piece of content. I'm trying to like generalize for everybody else out there listening how they can apply it to their own business.
Sure.
When one piece of content comes in, you have a system of creating 5, 7, 8 posts from
Sure.
that one thing. So for you, as that one listing
Yep.
comes in, you
Absolutely.
have. So what are your posts that you get? Just so everybody understands.
Yeah, so absolutely. I've done social media. I now do it for our team. Our team's, doing 20 to, probably $20 million in real estate business this year. And we don't talk about the numbers because that's right. Our heart is to help people. Like we're doing big things, but we'd much rather focus on like the relationships and serving people. But to kind of break it down for you. So for instance, like when someone lists a house, right? So I had someone that I spoke with today, they want to list their home. When someone lists a home, all right. Well, first of all, I have a plan, right? So like if I'm listing your house next Friday, this Friday, the photographer is coming and the photographer will get me the professional pictures over the weekend. And then Monday, your home is coming soon. So I think part of it is like, yes, the social media, but even having a strategy of like, hey, this is how I do my business and sharing that with people. Some realtors are like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, well, you need a strategy in the same way with social media. So when I know I have a house coming soon, so we'll use you. So you're listing your house next Friday. This Friday, the photographer's coming. Monday, I'm posting that the house is coming soon. So the sign goes in the yard that day, and people get excited about it on social media. We can't do any showings until it's active, obviously, but they're excited. They're like, oh, check out this house. They're sending it to their husband or wife or whoever. Check out this house that's on Instagram. And, it's online. Then when it goes active, the house, so coming soon is the first post on a Monday, active on Thursday or Friday, whenever they do it. And then the minute the house is under contract in this market, it's over that weekend. So within that first weekend, I'll be posting by Sunday night under contract, well above list price with all these offers. And then I post when we get to the settlement table. So when the house sells, I'll post sold. And then 98% of all of my clients have left me a review. And I think it's again having a strategy. So I have a template that I send out. Hey, happy settlement day. If you guys would write a review, here's the template, blah, blah, blah. And then when they write that review, I have a template that goes into, a thing that gets shared on Instagram. So from one property, we're talking about the property 5 times. And here's the interesting thing, Matt. I'm not like being dishonest, right? Like it says coming soon, 123 Main Street, for sale, 123 Main Street, under contract, 123 Main Street, sold, 123 Main Street. And so like you can scroll back, but what it does for our team, for myself, is I look super busy, and I am, but our team is like, oh my gosh, they're either listing something under contract, coming soon, or something almost every day. I do the post for our team. I think I have done 200 posts through today. So I don't know how many days into the year we are, but like probably 250, somewhere along there, right? So
Yeah.
like it's like almost one a day that our team is posting.
Wow.
And so I think
That's awesome.
to even like, as not everyone's a realtor. So you're kind of like, well, how do I apply this to my business? Well, recently I started coaching people on social media. I already got, hey, I'm doing these coaching calls. I can talk about what people are learning on them. And from the people that, connected with me on these calls, I already have gotten reviews from every single one of them. I just say, here's how you can help my business grow. And so in real estate, so I guess, something I hope your listeners hear is like, no matter what business you're in, are you asking for reviews? Are you then sharing those reviews on Facebook? I know, Matt, I'm sure people that listen to this know this. You're an amazing, amazing videographer. Like, I don't know that I've seen people do the kind of work you do.
Thank you,
And
man.
so here, guys, I'm just going to spend 12 minutes talking about how great Matt is. But like, you do amazing work. And I think, but if like you do amazing work, but like no one's giving you a review that you can share on social media, how do other people know about how amazing your work is? Like, it's easy for Matt P to be like, oh, I'm amazing, hire me. Well, but it's much better for your clients to say, no, you don't understand. Matt is like the man, amazing. So, yeah.
I love that. And two things that I hadn't thought about until now that you just said. One is the coming soon. So I feel like when it comes to like my podcast, if
Yeah.
you own a restaurant, you could post that if you do like a specialty meal or something like that, you could put
Yeah.
coming soon, like all that can be applied to almost pretty much any business coming soon and just hyping that up. And then the reviews. So I know how important reviews are, testimonials, that kind of stuff. Where do you collect those? Do you just have people email them to you and then you implement it wherever, or do you have a specific place for people to
Yeah,
review?
I think, with my two kind of arms right now, we've got the coaching and then we've got like the real estate. The real estate, there's Zillow, Realtor.com, Facebook, Google. Like, I just send those links and I'll say to people, hey, and I not only, Matt, have 98% of my people leave a review, but actually almost all of them leave them on all four sites. So
Wow.
not only are people willing to like go, and I kind of share them in order. So Google's the top one, obviously. Like, but some people only search on Zillow or Realtor.com or Facebook for a realtor. So like, I don't want to miss those opportunities. So I say, will you share this here? So to have clients that like are willing to not only leave me a review, but then basically take the steps to copy and paste it in all those sites, it's a game changer. So that I kind of have a formula because those sites are set up with my real estate work. In terms of the coaching and training I'm doing right now for not only realtors with social media, but even other businesses with social media, I just say, hey, can you email me a review? I can then put that in a template, share that to social media, etc. And I would say, not, you didn't ask this specifically, but one of the things I've learned now, I've played around with Canva a little bit, but I've found, and if people look at my stuff on my Facebook, Instagram, you can find my stuff. You'll see that like every post I have for real estate is a template. You'll see like my headshot, the company information, for sale, sold, coming soon, etc. I had someone build that in Photoshop. I am like horrible with Photoshop, but I'm like dangerous enough that like I can follow a to-do list of how to basically change the picture, change the address, export it to a JPEG, text it to myself and share it. And again, I think Canva is great for what it is, but I also think if you've got somebody that for $100, $200 would build you a template for yourself in real estate, in marketing, in videography, I feel like that has a more professional feel. And I get comments all the time on our team page, on my stuff, that wow, that looks super professional. And so I would say that might be a route to go for some people.
Yeah, and that's one thing with Canva. Canva's a recurring theme here on my podcast. So many people in marketing use it. It's a great tool. But like you said, unless you have really like an eye for design,
Yeah.
lean into those templates, or like you said, pay somebody to make a template for you and just
Yep.
ask them to create it in Canva. I'm sure that's a thing because like
Mm-hmm.
John, I just helped somebody else in the Total Life Freedom group create they had the content created for this free thing they're giving away. I actually went in and like designed them the PDF, and I actually used Canva to do that. So they're able to give it away to all the people. And it's really simple to do, but if you have an eye for it, it makes it a lot easier. Um,
Yep.
but that's a great, great tip. All of that from like how to do everything. And you mentioned that you just started coaching people on social media.
Yes,
So
sir.
I kind of watched that unfold
Yeah.
at the retreat that we were at, and then on in our Facebook group. they challenge you to do it. And you have a podcast episode where you talk about it. It's one of the most recent podcast episodes. It's like episode 77 or 78, something like that. So everybody go listen to that. It talks about how he created more streams of income by doing this, which is really awesome.
Yeah, that
But
was, yeah, yep, I think 76. Anyway, it was, but
yeah,
it's called Just Like That. I had two more businesses.
yep, that's the one.
Yep.
So with you doing social media coaching now, what is something that you keep hearing about social media? Because I have my own preconceived notions, and you kind of like when you mentioned them, I kind of felt some of that, you know. But what are you hearing from people as to like their drawbacks from not wanting to do it more?
Everyone that I have talked to recently, and it's so interesting because I've been doing this, I've worked with a few people in a paid role, but it's really like I've helped dozens of people with social media and not even realized this is all preparing you to transition into coaching social media. I didn't realize that. People in TLF were telling me, and you know how Vincent is, he's kind of got to give us a kick in the pants. But I think I'm learning that some people are triggered. Like I was on a call today and we talked about creating stuff on social media, and it looked like the person almost got anxiety or PTSD. And I'm not making light of it. Those are very serious things because some people really get so emotionally drained thinking about social media, right? Someone that I recently coached said, like, well, I don't know what to post. I don't know how to post. And another person said, like, well, I don't want to look like I have it all together, and I don't put it on Instagram that I had a disagreement with my wife, or like my son was like, you do share the best stuff, but I also think you can be real, right? Like, as we're in this season now of my wife staying home, like I've actually joked with her, there was Christian podcasters at a podcast movement talking about their podcast with their wife, and I'm going to make her watch this. But like I've said to my wife, like we should share our journey. Like it's not about, oh, you're the expert. It's really about like, well, what's your journey like with two kids under 2 years old? And like, how do you survive? I think people need that. But to answer the question, I think the biggest thing is just people are so concerned that they have to like one up someone else, or they're like, there's too many social medias. I don't even want to touch it. And so when I coach people, I kind of say like, hey, like, let's start with what you're comfortable with. What social medias are you using? Okay, you have an Instagram account and you have a Facebook account, and that's what you're using. Okay, then let's see how we can use some of those to organically help your business.
I love that. And we were just on a call this morning with TLF and people talking about being on social media. I don't know if you caught it. Somebody mentioned about posting negative stuff and posting the real stuff, not necessarily just negative, but the real stuff. And I think it was Vince, it might have been somebody else said, yeah, but then the people who always post the real stuff are considered negative, and then they get unfollowed by everybody. So their content really never catches on. So like, that's something I've struggled with because I want to share real struggles on social media, but I also don't want to come off as like whining, we're to the
Yep.
point where I get blocked by everybody. And like I said, we know each other. So I mean, you messaged me after you listened to Gina's episode a couple episodes back, because you're like, I'm going to punch you in the face for talking about all this stuff and then not implementing it. It's so true. But like for me, like I'm trying so hard to be better about social media. Like I have like little snippets that I'm pulling from the podcast episodes, that kind of stuff. But it takes so much work to get those kind of things. And then like outside of that, like you mentioned, like, what do I post?
Yep.
I mean, is it just a matter of picking something and sticking with it? And consistency will eventually pay off, and the algorithm will
Yeah.
be showing it to more people.
I think the answer is I want people to be themselves, right? So, like, and I'll say this name, and some people love him, some people hate him, but me and my wife followed Dave Ramsey to get out of debt.
Mhm.
And so, like, we were very honest on social media about our journey to pay off debt. Now again, there's a balance. You don't say, "Oh, this is my income," but like when we got to the point where we were debt free, we said like we paid off. I don't. It was somewhere. I think it was 73 or somewhere around that 70 mark is what we paid off, and we shared that. And then I shared in that post that our next goal was to save up 10 months of living expenses for our family by the time our daughter was born. Then March 1st, so 6 months to the day after becoming debt free, when we hit that goal, I shared that on social media. And then the next goal was her to be a stay-at-home mom. Now I was careful because she was still working a W-2 about what I wrote, but then when she became a stay-at-home mom in June or July, we shared that. So I think part of it is like, you don't necessarily share, oh, life is hard, we're struggling to pay our bills, I was struggling when real estate started, but I think you're honest with people, right? So my clients know that there is no pressure on them to buy a home. Well, you might say, well, John, how do they know that? Well, they've seen us get out of debt with Dave Ramsey, they've seen us save up 12 plus months of living expenses in the bank, and they've seen my wife business, like my business really being blessed so much that she was able to leave her job. So I think internally, like, I don't have to say, oh, there's no pressure. They see it through what I post. They're like, oh, he's debt free, and now his goal is to like pay off his house by the time he's 35 years old. So like, if they don't buy a house this year and they want to wait a year, cool. That, like, but I think it's like, I was real about our journey. And in those posts, I've said, like, look, we struggled at the beginning. This was hard. And so, like, even when you did that intro and thinking about like where God's led us, like being debt free, like, I'm kind of like, how did this happen? But we just kind of were faithful in each step. And I was honest about the journey. I think people love the honesty, and like, hey, if I can become debt free in real estate, or now I'm building these other things where it's kind of like the real estate is sort of happening organically, like, and now I have bandwidth to build these other things. People are like, wait, I want some of that. On my podcast episode today, I talked about how, like, in October, Vincent said, oh, well, there's no such thing. Like, I'm my first TLF retreat, I said, I'm a realtor. There's no such thing as recurring income. And he was like, stop, don't even think that way, because that's self-limiting. Well, now I'm like, I've got a few different business arms that are kind of someone. October 1st, I start my first paid coaching client every month. They pay me. Well, that all got
Nice.
built through social media, the podcast, all that stuff. It kind of all works together. So I think, like,
That's so
be
cool.
you, right? Like, be you, share your journey. For you, Matt, you kind of have like these goals for you and your wife. I think, like, on the podcast, on Facebook, share about what your goals are, and it like it makes you more real.
Okay, and that's good to know, because coming from my perspective, this it's a marketing podcast, and I feel almost like I can only share marketing stuff because I have the marketing podcast. So that's a lot of what comes through. So like, I just got a paddleboard for my birthday. Me and my wife went out paddleboarding yesterday. We want to travel. We want to have like a little mini camper and pull it across the
Yep.
country and like
Yep.
do that for extended periods of time. So like, it's okay to talk about, to mix that in with the marketing stuff to let people know me. It doesn't have to
Mhm.
be all learning or like all teaching all of the time, correct?
No, I totally agree. I think people want to know what you do. I love sports. And so I post about it on social media. I post about my family. I really want it to be organic. I don't want anyone to stress about, like, what do I post today? I'm like, well, tell me. I know at the TLF retreat, we joked with you. You're like, well, what do I post on social media? And we're like, well, don't you love Christmas? And you're like, yeah. And we were talking about, I saw your story today about how many days till Christmas.
Yeah.
Um, there was a Christmas Indiana, or like some city, and we're like, go there and talk on social media about how much you love Christmas. um
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is, like, be real, be who you are. Some of the podcast episode that I get the most feedback on, Matt, is my business update every single month. So my first episode of every single month since April, Ken Carfagno told me to do this. Now Kent Sanders learned it from me and Ken. It talks about my business. I talk about what I did in my real estate business this past month. I just recorded it for October in a couple, October 1st in a couple weeks. And it talks about the real estate deals I did in September, what I have closing in October. I've shared with people. Now I don't share the number because, but I've shared with people that my goal was to double my income from last year. And on the next, here, spoiler, guys, on the next episode, it talks about how, like, if all 4 deals under contract settle in October, the third one puts me at 101% of doubling. And the fourth deal will put me at 108. So 108% of the goal to double. So I've already doubled. It's going to happen. And now it's like, could I triple?
Yeah.
But people love that realness, man. Again, I don't share, oh, I made $12.02 on this. Like, but they love, I don't make $12 a deal, thankfully. Like, they love the honesty, and I even will say, like, hey, I didn't have any closings this past month, and that's okay. I'm building up for September and October. And so I think it's like just being real, man. I think as my podcast has grown, people like that I'm genuine. I'd be honest, if I didn't hit my goal, I'm like, well, I set a really big goal to double my income. I didn't hit it, but this is what I'm going to do to try bigger in 2022. So it's just about being honest and real. And I think people really like that stuff because a lot of people aren't.
That's really awesome. I love that monthly wrap up idea. I might seriously consider doing that because I feel like it's just another way to be authentic and kind of show people where I'm at. Because I would love to double my income in a year. I mean, and where I'm at, that's not unrealistic to do. Just kind of like in your intro, just got to work my butt off to do it. So yeah, that's a great point. So with you being social media savvy and coaching on it and everything, what's something you've learned recently that you're going to implement or have started implementing?
I think the biggest thing is like not overwhelming people and not overwhelming myself, right? So like there's so many things. I just made a list yesterday of like all these things that I have to post on social media. Someone mentioned me in their newsletter, someone this podcast, this settlement. I think the biggest thing is, don't get overwhelmed. Like I could wake up and be like, I have to do this, this, and this. Oh, and now I'm stressed about social media. Social media, for me, I'm preaching to the choir when I say this. Like for me and the people that I coach, I want social media to be fun. So I kind of am like, what can I share today that either will, Jennifer Harshman often talks about buckets, and she's a great resource for those of you who don't know her. She's an editor, but she talks about buckets when she produces content. Is this going to make someone laugh, make someone think? And I forget but I think like I want what I put out there. I don't just want it to be stupid, right? Like I want it to be valuable. And so I don't want to get overwhelmed, and I want to produce things that people are enjoying. People often, even in TLF, I feel like this happens all the time. People are like, well, do I post to like my business page or my personal page? And I'm just like, let's get started. Now I have a strategy where like I post to the team page, the person shares it to the personal page, tags the client, and it works for us. But I think for me, it's like, don't get so stressed about everything. There's, again, we all kind of feel like there's not enough time to do everything. I want to spend time with my kids and my wife. But I think the biggest thing is just like, take it one step at a time. Like if I have 30 things to post today for our team, I don't, like, in theory, like, well, I could get overwhelmed by that. Instead, it's like, what's the next right step? What's the next right step for me? What's the next right step for people I coach? Those kinds of things.
I love that thinking. What's the next right step? And then just lean into that gut feeling and just move forward. All right, John. So I'm going to wrap up part 1 of this episode because
Okay.
I don't know how long we've been recording. Zoom doesn't tell me how long, but I don't want to have like an hour and a half long episode. Like as one giant chunk. Honestly, for everybody out there listening, I love the way you do your podcast where it's like 10, 15-minute long episodes. And then you'll have like, you interviewed Vincent on your podcast a few episodes back. And that one was a little longer, but like, I'm really loving the shorter content. So I'm going to wrap up episode 1 or part 1 of this episode.
All
part
right.
2 will come next week. So for everybody listening to part 1, show John some love. Where can they follow you on social media?
Yeah, well, first of all, guys, I hope you know that Matt does amazing work. Seriously, I'm telling you, if you do not, those of you in business need an amazing videographer. Guys, he didn't even give me like $3 to do this. He does like some of the most amazing video work I've ever seen, like the stuff he's shown me and the stuff I've seen him shoot. So hire Matt. But yes, you can find me. Right now, I'm building out a lot of different things. So the coaching, there will be a site, and it's not even there yet. But you can find me at therealestatesurvivalguide.com, social media, John Shookman. And I'd love to connect with anyone. And if there's anyone out there that just has questions, like I'll jump on a call. Like I don't like, let's get on for 15 minutes. Let me answer some calls for you. I love doing that. I do that for probably 10 to 15 realtors every couple of weeks. And so even if you're not a realtor, let's jump on a 15-minute call. And I'd love to kind of answer some questions for you, try to hopefully take that anxiety level down in terms of like social media. So thank you so much for listening.
Awesome. And everybody out there listening, look up John Shookman. So John is spelled normally, John. Shookman, this one took me a second. It's Schuchman. So go ahead and look him up. I wanted to spell it out for everybody listening so they know exactly where to find you. So the Real Estate Survival Guide podcast, look him up on social media, John Shookman. Thank you again for being on this episode. If you listen to this one, come back next week and listen to part 2.
Thanks, Matt.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Matt Pete Marketing Podcast. If you know somebody who has a business and they could use some help marketing and growing their business, if you would just take a couple seconds to share this podcast with them, I would be grateful, and I know they would be as well. Thanks.